And we're talking, okay. Kumlan of Gemara, we are up to Masechta Megilah Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, and basically that we're talking about different introductions using different psukim, using drush to say that there is some connection there, some allusion there to the story of Purim. Okay, we are up to now 3 lines from the top of the page. Rav Chanina bar Papa, Rav Chanina the son of Papa, he used as an introduction for the parsha from here. It says in Pasuk here, Kafta enish l'rashenu, that you've taken this person and made him our leader, Bonu ba'esh uvamayim, and we jumped into fire and water. So what does that mean? Ba'esh, when did we jump into fire? We made Nebuchadnezzar at the time of Nebuchadnezzar, when Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were tossed into the fiery furnace, and uvamayim, when did water happen? We made Pare, in the times of Pare. And then you took us out, you saved us l'ravoya, and we became full. We made Haman. That was in the time of Haman when we celebrated, and there we were victorious. Rabbi Yechanan, Rabbi Yechanan, his introduction was from here. Zochar chazdai b'emunasai, that the Eibishter remembered his chesed and faithful basis soul to Eden. Ro kol avsi, all the corners of the world saw Esishuas Alekenu, how the Eibishter helped us. When did that happen? The entire world saw the times of Mordechai Esther. So this is a little bit different than what the Rashash's theory was. I told you a few days ago that only those countries that Achashverosh was directly king over, not under those vassal states that had their own king. Here it seems that everywhere in the entire world was included. Reish Lakish, Posala, Pischala, High Pajal, Lakish, his opening was from here. Ari Noyam, the lion roared, V'toiv Shekik, and the bear made its noises. Moishel Roshal Amdal, the Russia controlled, had dominion over this poor nation. So what is it referring to? Ari, this is the Mishlei. Ari Noyam, who is the lion that roars? Regarding him, it describes Ola Aryeh Misayfchet. The lion went up from the bushes, the thick bushes. Okay, so we know that it's about Nebuchadnezzar. Doiv Shekik. He was describing the bear that makes its noises. It says, you saw an animal after the first one, the second one, it's similar to a bear. Daniel is describing 4 different animal visions, and the second one was like a bear. The Torah Yosef, Elu Parsim, these are the parts. The Persians, they eat like a bear. They have a lot of flesh like a bear. They also have a lot of hair like a bear. They have no peace like a bear. Moishel Russia, it says here that they controlled, that the Russia controlled the Edens at Haman. Al Amdal over the impoverished nation. Elu Yisro. Shem dalim min ha-mitzvahs, that they are poor, impoverished from mitzvahs. They didn't do enough mitzvahs, so Haman had control. His introduction came from here. It says, and we had this pasuk already also in Tainis, about Tzaltim, because of your laziness, Yomach mikra, the roof came down, because your hands were too lazy to be picked up, it rained into the house. So we darshan. Bishvil atzlu shahayla misah, because of the laziness they even had, that they didn't learn Torah. So previously we said because da'al from mitzvahs, and now we're saying they didn't learn Torah. Nasa soine shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu mach. So this is a euphemism saying that soine, that means the Eibishter became like his hands were tied, became because the Eden didn't learn his Torah. Impoverished. Now it says, you cannot afford it. It says, he brought up the water to the higher floors, and that's referring to the Eibishter. Rav Nachman, his introduction to the story of Purim is from here. Shir HaMailas, Lule Hashem Shahal Yelona, if Hashem would have been with us, Yom Yisrael, he didn't say, Lule Hashem Shahal Yelona B'kum Aleina Adam. When Adam stood against us, Adam ben Melech, not the king, it wasn't Achashverosh, it was actually Haman. And the Eibishter supported us. Rava then brought, as an introduction to Megillah from here, the Rabbi Tzadikim, when Tzadikim increase, Yismacham, everybody's happy. When the Russians are in control, everybody moans and groans and krechtes. So we say, the Rabbi Tzadikim Yismacham, When there's more tzaddik and people are happy, that's referring to Mordechai Esther. But in the show Russia, when the Russians in control, Yenacham, they will krechte, Haman, the Chsiv, he is Shushan, they're all crying. Rav Masna Amma Mahocha, Master brought introduction from here. Kimi Goy Godel Ashaloy Lakim Krema, which great nation is the Abisha close to them, but the Abisha helped us out. Rav Ashi says from here, Oyanisa Lakim, Love Goy Mikotachos Goy, the Abisha came along and took out one nation from another. What's he trying to say here? This pasuk actually is referring to Mitzrayim, but what happened in Mitzrayim is that it wasn't like Yidun Yisrael. And then, they were separated. They were living in Mitzrayim amongst all the Goyim, and Abisha came and took them out. Same thing here. They were living in Shushan amongst all the Goyim, and Abisha came and took them out. Or perhaps in Mitzrayim, it was through Dafke, through the help of Pare, that we were saved, because he made this decree, and it was his daughter, Bas Pare, Bisya Bas Pare, who saved us. Same thing over here. It's Dafke Haman who saved us, because he got Vashti killed, and because of him, Esther became the queen, and we were saved. Vayhi b'me'ach hashvedish. Now we're going to go explain parts of the Megillah. Vayhi. Amar Rav says Vay and he, two different words. Vay is oivei, it's terrible. What's terrible? The he. He smakart shall be sold as they would try to sell you a slave, but nobody wants to buy you. The ain't koinen. That's the he. So Vay is vay. He is you'll be sold. Shmuel Amalem asked him belega altim. Shmuel says no. On the being a positive vein. And the Abisha says, I didn't despise them, I didn't find them repulsive, to destroy them. In the times of the Greeks, I didn't find them repulsive in the times of Muchanetzer, to destroy them, to breach my bond with them, I'll always be the Abisha, even make Goygumah. The Masnita Tana and Bryce we learned similar but different periods. Loima Astim was talking about make Kazdim, the time of Chanetzer. Shemari Telhem, Daniel, Hanani, Meshov Azaria, and I produce these great tzaddikim. Veloiga Altim didn't find repulsive. B'mei Yevonim, the times of Greek. Shemari Telhem, Shimon HaTzadik. I gave them Shimon HaTzadik, Alexander the Great. When he came and he met him, they embraced. And because he said Shimon HaTzadik always stands before him when it comes to war. The Chashmonai Uvanov Umatasio Kohen Gadol. Now this is very interesting. Rabbi Yaakov Emden the Siddur brings that his theory is that Matasio and Chashmonai were two different families. The main Matasio and Kohen Gadol, then separately Chashmonai Uvanov. And you look in the Gemara, it seems clearly that Chashmonai Uvanov were one group, and then a Matasio Kohen Gadol was another group. They were not one family. Very interesting. So this is actually, because everybody disagrees with him, but looking at this Gemara, the Lashon, sounds like that there's some basis to what Rabbi Yaakov Emden says. L'chaloisam, to destroy them, b'mei Haman. In the times of Haman, what I do, Shemad Mordechai Esther. I made sure Mordechai Esther was there at the helm. L'hafa b'risita may pass in times of prison. Shemad Telhem shall base Rebbe. The Chachmedaitis. We jump over here a whole bunch of years, but the Beis Rebbe and Chachmedaitis. Some people say Beis Rebbe had nothing to do with Parsim. It may also be a gears of Rome. In the future, that nobody will be able to control the Eden. From here. His introduction to the Megillah was even like 30 shurs if you don't expel. If you don't expel those people who live on the land. So therefore, the same thing here. The whole story of Purim happened was our own fault, because Shaul HaMelech did not listen to Shmuel HaNavi's instructions, and he allowed Agag to remain alive. And even though Shmuel killed him afterwards, Agag meanwhile impregnated a woman, and eventually it produced Haman. The Gemara continues. From here. What I wanted to do to them, I will do to you. In other words, Eden almost got destroyed because I wanted to destroy Amalek. You didn't do it, so you got almost destroyed. Achashverosh, what kind of name is Achashverosh? We're going to say it's like Och and Rosh. He was like a brother to Nebuchadnezzar. Not that they were family, or not that they were brothers, but rather he would behave just like him. And he had the same mazel, the same disposition. He's called the head Shenemar. Anturation is you're the head of all the gold. And Ben Gilish, what do you mean they behave the same way? Who harag? Who big harag? And Nebuchadnezzar killed so many Eden, and Achashverosh wanted to. Who hechli, he destroyed Beis Mikdash, who biglach, if he wanted to, it was Kodesh, allowed us to build a Beis Mikdash, and then it was stopped, and Achashverosh didn't want to let them continue. Now it says, they wrote these terrible allegations against those the dwellers of Yehuda and Shalim. Shmuel Amar, we know what Achashverosh is. It's not referring to the king, we're referring to the Eden. Hushchru, name from the word Hushchru. Black, the face of the Eden, biyama keshulak there like the bottom of a pot, because the Eden did not behave properly, and they was had to be killed. Anybody said anybody who mentioned Achashverosh, he said ach oy gewalt. Ach is like oy, and leroy shait his head. And but Chanina Amar shahakol nasa rosh biyama. Everybody was impoverished. Achashverosh. How? It says in the end of Megilah, vayosim hamelch mas. He imposes heavy taxes, and therefore, basically, everyone became poor. Okay, next thing Megilah says, "Vahid me Achashverosh, who Achashverosh?" What do you mean, who he is Achashverosh? He just said in the title Achashverosh. Who Achashverosh means that he was consistent. In what way? Who Berisha Megilah he was consistent from beginning to the end. Who Esav? Who Berisha it says who Esav? He was a rush from the young age to when he's old. Who does Avadim? Hey Berisha Megilah from when we were exposed to them. And this is Parsha, right, safe until the very end. Who Hamelech Ochaz, he was the king Ochaz, who Berisha Megilah is a rush from beginning to the end. Avram, who Avram? Over here, who means consistent? Over there was a tzaddik, obviously, who Betzitka from the age of 3 to the rest of his life. Who Aaron and Moshe, Hein Betzitka Mechilas, they were righteous from beginning to the end. The David, who HaKotten, what do you mean who HaKotten? The same, who Bekatnusa, he was always humble. Betchilasav Sefer, from beginning to the end. Kishein Bekatnusa, he did not smell, just like when he was young, he respected someone who knew how to learn Torah better than him. Kach Malchusa, even when he was king, he gave respect to those who had more knowledge than him. And he didn't kill his own kid, he didn't kill Shimon ben Geda because he had more knowledge and so on. He had Shlomo kill him. Same with Achetefel. Hamelech, it says in the passage there, he crowned himself because he wasn't worthy. As we'll soon see, I would say that it's actually a compliment, but that's a derogatory statement. He was the most worthy. He wasn't worthy at all. He just paid his way through. He bribed people. The come became king. The Rav Shmuel, Chadamar Hoyde B'Seifel, which are in the two ends of the world. The Chadamar Hoyde B'Kush, Gabi Adore became next to each other. It would seem to me, I haven't seen it very well, that the machlekes is, what does Kush mean? Rashi throughout Shas says Kush is Ethiopia. But Kush, we also know, is the Kush Mountains, which is right next to Hoydu, India. So maybe it's exactly what the machlekes is. Which Kush are we referring to here? We're referring to Kush, which is Afghanistan, there right next to India, and therefore there's next to each other. Or are we talking about Kush, which is Ethiopia, two ends of the I guess the civilized world at that time. They were next to each other, but just like he had total control over them, he had total control of the whole world. You find similar. It says in the pasuk, the Chol Eber Hanor, he controlled the entire other side of the river, Metafsa Aza, that he controlled, that Shlomo Melech had control of the entire other side of the river from Tifsach until Aza. Again, Tifsach and Aza, where are they? There were two ends of the world, the Chadam, but Tifsach and Aza were next to each other. Kishein Shemalach al Tifsach al Aza kach Malach al Ankul, it's all control. Then it's in the pasuk Sheva ve'esim, maybe 127 nations. Why you spell out 7, 20, 100? He started out with 7. Then he grew and became 20. Then another 100. If that's how you get darshan, Amram Sheva starts low numbers. Sheva 7, Shloshim 30, Mashan 100. My darshan be willing to darshan there. But Shiny Hoch here is different. The Kroy say here it's extra. Why is it extra? Mechdi Ksiva Hoyde Kush. Sheva Vesim, normally why have to spell 127? We know he controlled the entire world. Teach you a drasha. You start out with 7 and 20, then 100. From when we learned Shloisha Malkoi Bekipa, there were 3 kings who ran the entire world that was under the sky. Elohim, these were they. One was Achav, one was Achashverosh, and one was Nebuchadnezzar. Taisa asks, why didn't you mention Alexander Mugden? And he says, because Alexander Mugden, we don't have any psukim regarding Alexander Mugden. We just have what the Gemara says. And we're looking for psukim. Achav, it says, Chai Hashem Lekecha, swear, Im Yesh Goyim Amlocha, that Avadia tells Eliyahu, Eliyahu Navi made a famine, and Achav was looking all over him. So Avadia tells Eliyahu, swearing him, Yesh Goyim Amlocha, Shleshol Chadoni Shom Akshecha, that Achav didn't send me to go and search for you, and I made them all swear. If Achav there wasn't control, how can Vadia make them swear that they don't know where Eliyahu was? Eliyahu was hiding there in the cleft of the mountains. It says, that nation, Babel, will not give their neck for and be subordinate to the king. So we see that what the entire world. Achashverosh, we just said that because 127 nations, he controlled all the world. Says there were no other kings. What about Shlomo? So it says he wasn't a king till the very end. Because we have the Gemara Gittin, the whole story there where King Ashmanite came and spat him out and got rid of him. So Gemara says, and there's a machlekes there if he came back or not. He was a king and then he became an ordinary person, I understand. And the end, all he controlled was his own stick. The Melech was a king, then an ordinary person, a king. What are you going to say then? So we answer, Shlomo is not in the same category as these other ones. Why? Because when Shlomo was a king, when he was on top of his game, not only Molech and the Tachtanim, he was Molech Elayonim, he controlled all the Malachim and everything else. Shlomo al Kisei Hashem, he was above the Kisei Hashem. So okay, what about Sanchedev? Who can say me? But Sanchedev was trying to attack Yerushalayim. He wasn't able to successfully capture Yerushalayim. So Moshe says, because he didn't conquer Yerushalayim, he's not included. What about the Yavish? What about the Yavish? It says, by the Yavish, the Yavish Malka Kosel Chalamaya Umma Velishna the Dayan Chol Arash, that the Yavish wrote to every single nation in the world, in every tongue, that your peace should grow. Or he had a connection with every single country in the world. So Gemara says, there were still 7 nations that he didn't control. And because of the 7 nations that he didn't control, therefore he wasn't really in control over the entire world. How do we know that? Because it says in Pasuk, Shvar Kedem, the Yavish, that Yavish was happy. He made him reign over 120 countries, and Achashverosh 127. So okay, fine. What about Kodesh? Hashem gave me all the nations of the world. He was just self-aggrandizement. It wasn't real. Okay, continue. In those days, when the king was arrested, it says afterwards, in the 3rd year, that Achashverosh, first it starts with saying when he rested, calmed down, that's right in the beginning, and then it says in the 3rd year of his reign, he decided to make the party. What do you mean Keshevis? It doesn't mean immediately. He thought about it, he considered it, he decided it's time to make a party. The cause of his party was that he was convinced that the 70 years that Yirmiyah promised is over, and the Eden are not going back to Etzisrael, that now we are successful. But the problem is, I will see that each one calculated the 7 years a different way, and they're all wrong. So Kitzur, Nebuchadnezzar became king, and the 2nd year of his kingdom, he went and he conquered, or he went to Etzisrael, and he made Yehoiakim, the Melech of Yehuda, to become subordinate of his. And for 3 years, Yehoiakim was a subordinate. And then Yehoiakim rebelled for 3 years. So the 2nd year of the kingdom, he took Yehoiakim as a subordinate. 3 years of that, then 3 years, it was 6 years, and that he rebelled. And eventually, Nebuchadnezzar came in and killed him. And he appointed Yehoiachin, the son of Yehoiakim, to become the next king. So this is like year number 7 since the story with Yehoiakim. Year number 8 from when Nebuchadnezzar became king. And Yehoiachin was king for 3 months. And when he came back, Nebuchadnezzar came back to Babel, they all made fun of him. Here, his father tried rebelling, and so you're going to trust his son? It doesn't make sense. So he went and he imprisoned, he brought Yehoiakim, it's called Golus Yehoiachin. He brought Yehoiachin and all the biggest Talmidei Chachamim, Chodesh, Ramizgor, he brought them all to Babel. And then he appointed Tzidkiyahu to become the king. And Tzidkiyahu was the king now for 11 years. So 11 years plus the 7 years makes it 18 years, or 19 years from when Nebuchadnezzar became king, or 18 years from when the story of Yaakov was. And then after that, he was a king for a number of years as well. So all up, he was a king for 45 years. This is relevant, as we'll soon see. So Nebuchadnezzar was a king for 45 years in total, and after that was Evel Merodach, who was for 25 years, 23 years, and then after that was Belshazzar for 2 years. And the third year he died. So this is important before that Kodesh and the Yavish, but that's not the Yavish, the son of Esther, that's the previous the Yavish, then Achashverosh, and then the Yavish, the son of Esther. So why that's only gay, as you'll soon see. Says the Gemara, Omar Achashverosh said, Belshazzar Choshev v'Torah, he made a calculation, or Chishav, he made a calculation, he made a mistake. I'm going to make a calculation, I'm not going to make a mistake. Mai, what's going on? Let's see what it says. When the 70 years of bubble is filled, Efker Eskemal, remember these, I'll take them out. See, another part says, when you fill the destruction of Yerushalayim, which was 19 years later, Shivim Shana, 7 years, is Choshev Aboyim V'Chav Nebuchadnezzar. If you calculate the 45 year Nebuchadnezzar reigned, this is what Belshazzar made a cheshbon. 45 years Nebuchadnezzar reigned. Esimitlas, because he thought the bubble means for the time that Melech Babel became king, Nebuchadnezzar, because Babel came and destroyed Nineveh, killed Asheroth, and he took over. So he started the Babel, and 45 years, 23 years of Evel Merodach, and then Vitati today, in 2 years of his, at 70. Hoshivim apig man in the Beis. So he went in, he didn't like going back. He went in, he took out all the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash that they captured. Rishtamas will use it. How do we know he's the king for 45 years? So now we learn Golu B'Sheva, Golus Yochid was the 7th year, and Golu B'Shmain was the 8th year. What do you mean? It was the 8th year from Nebuchadnezzar's reign, the 7th year from when he conquered, or he made Joachim subordinate to him. Golu B'Shmain Esther, Golu B'Tesha Esther. And then 11 years of Tzidkiyahu. So it's 19, 11, and 8 is 19 years since Nebuchadnezzar became king, or 18 years from when Jehoiakim was taken captive, or was subordinate to Nebuchadnezzar. As he says, B'Sheva, he explains, 7, L'kibush Jehoiakim, when he was conquered Jehoiakim, in Golus Jehoiachin, which is that's when the Golus of Yochim was the story of Yochim after he killed Jehoiakim, and he took Yochim and made him king for 3 months, which is 7 years since the Jehoiakim's story and 8 years since Nebuchadnezzar took the reins. Golu b'Shmoina Esrei. And then after Tzidkiyahu, he destroyed the Beis Hamikdash and took everyone to Babel. So that was 18 years from the story of Yoachim, Lekibush Yoachim, and Golus Yoshi Chayase Shana Nebuchadnezzar, 19 years Nebuchadnezzar. What do you mean? Because Shana is the first year when Nebuchadnezzar became king, Kibush Nineveh. He conquered Nineveh, he became king. Shana Shni, the second year, Kibush Yoachim, he conquered Yehoiakim. 37 years after Yoachim was put into exile, was taken captive, taken to Babel. So you have 37 years plus. It was the 8th year that it happened. So 30 since Nebuchadnezzar's reign. So 8 and 37 is 45. Is Melech Yehuda b'Shnei Masach Chodesh b'Esach Mishal Chodesh on the 12th month, 25th day of the month. Nasa Evel Merodach Melech Babel b'Shnas Malchusay. He went ahead the Melech Babel. Now was Evel Merodach, and as Rosh Yochim, he took over from Nebuchadnezzar, and he elevated the head of Yochim, Melech Yehuda, the Yotzei B'Zekela. So till then, Yochim was sitting in jail. Yochim was in jail basically for 37 years. Tamdit was in Sheva. So now it's a total of 45. The Nebuchadnezzar. So you have 45 years Nebuchadnezzar's reign, and then you have Essin, because that's when Evel took over. The Essin, 23 years, he was at reign. That's 68. And Gemara, how do we know that? That's tradition. The time to the day, and then the 2 years of Belshazzar, Hoshivim 70. Ambas, and now Belshazzar says, they will not go out. But we'll use it. And this is what Daniel said. He says to Belshazzar, you decided to elevate yourself above the heaven. Ulamanya the Bebesa and the Kalim of his house, you brought before yourself. It says, Bebalayla, that night, Kotl Bishatza Malka Kazdoi, they killed Bishatza Malka. It says, with the Yavish Madah and the Yavish from Madai, Kibul Malchusa, he took over the kingdom, Kibashnin Stein Vitartin. So what happened was that then after Belshazzar was killed, then what do you call it? Then he took over Malchus Madoi, and what do you call it? So he took over them Kabashnin Shnisi Vitartin, and he became at the age of 62. That was exactly my age. He became the king and took over. Again, this is not the Yavish son of Esther. This is the earlier the Yavish. So Achashverosh said, "Look, Belshazzar obviously made a mistake. I won't make a mistake. Miksiv the Malchus bubble. Does it say to Nebuchadnezzar's reign? The bubble ksiv. My bubble, the gold bubble. When Hoyachin was taken to bubble, that's when you have to start counting the 70 years. That was his cheshbon. That was 8 years later than the cheshbon of Belshazzar. Now, bubble kamati in time is 8 years. Choshi v'ayil chulufayu. So therefore, I'm going to have to add 8 years. So you have Chodel Belshazzar, 1 year Belshazzar. Chomesh the Yavish v'Kodesh. The Yavish v'Kodesh, 1 was 3, 1 was 2 years, so that's 5 years. So 5 years and 1 year, 6 years. And then he waited 2 years from his kingdom. But 30 days, 2 of his. Hashiva, now we got to 70. Even the Chosna Mol Shiva Nakodesh, new cheshbon. He decided Golas, it's not from bubble, but Golas bubble, from when Yochim went to Golas, that's when you calculate the 70 years. And therefore, I'm not going out. That's why he took out all the Kalim. The Shtamish will used it. Well, Satan the Satan came along and he pranced around. The Hargas Vashti caused him to lose Vashti. The question is, what was his mistake? He did the right cheshbon. No, he thought his Golas bubble means Yochim. Actually, Golas bubble means the Churmei Samigdash, which is 11 years later. The boiler, the Mimna Mechar B'Shalayim. Saif, Kama B'Tzirin, how much was missing? Was 11 years. Chad today, 11 years. Ia Kama Molech. So how long was Achashverosh king? 14 years in total. So the last year of his reign, the Eden should have left, and they didn't. Kama Molech, base of 14 years, but basically they moved the basic Mikdash. Why did they build the basic Mikdash in Achashverosh last year? They didn't. It was only later by the Yavish, the son of Esther. Alom Aksiv, it says, Be'eret, it says in the Pasuk, that Be'eret, Alom Aksiv, it says, Ba'adin, then Be'telet Avidas Beis Al-Kodi B'Shleim, that you stop the Avida of the Beis Mikdash Shleim. Rava says, Geshani Mikatayis Hayah. The Yavish and Achashverosh were not 5 years, were actually 4 years, because they overlapped. And the same thing was Tanya, we learn there's another year bubble, the Yavish, and the Yavish came and made it up. Okay, Omar Rava. Rava said, Av Daniel Torba Chuzma. Daniel also made a toss in this cheshbon initially. See what it says, B'Shana Achel Malkoi. I Daniel b'noisim b'sfarim. I started to recalculate and think through the sfarim. In other words, he had one cheshbon, then he realized it's a mistake. But to come up b'noisim b'klal the Torah, he made a mistake. Says the Gemara. Come on, kosher credit is a problem of psukim on each other. Ksiv, it says Malay is the bubble, when 70 years filled from bubble. Ksiv lecharbez shleim. So which one is it? Amar Rav lepkida ba'alma. 70 years when we went to bubble, the Eibush remembered us. When from the bubble went out and Nebuchadnezzar took over, but he didn't do anything about it till 70 years from the Churban. I receive Koi Amar Kodesh Melech Paras, Kodesh King Paras, and Kol Mamlachas or Nosan Hashem L'Kereshmayim. Hashem gave me all the nations of the world. But who pocketed the lion? He told me, leave the Yerushalayim. This is the first Kodesh. He was told to build a house in Yerushalayim, and he started, and then it stopped straight away. It says, Koi Amar Hashem L'Mashiach. Hashem said to his anointed, the Kodesh. Asher Zakti b'Yamina, that I held him on my right side. Kodesh Mashiach, God was anointed. Ella Omla Baruch Mashiach. Hashem said to Mashiach, Kodesh. He put a break between Mashiach and Kodesh, and he said, "I'm complaining." The Rashi says that every time there's a zarka in the trop, followed by that afterwards is a munach segel or segel. Over here, after Mashiach, which is a Zarka, the Kodesh is a different trouble altogether. In other words, there's two separate people. Mashiach is Mashiach, and Kodesh is Kodesh. And he was telling Mashiach he's upset with Kodesh. I said, who Yivne basically, I want him personally to be involved in construction of the base of Migdash. The Yikabes go, you say, bring back my exiles. And what he said, Mi b'chem kol amei v'yah, who amongst you wants to come to my nation, v'yo, and come back. Okay, that finishes today's blot.